Welcome to another installation of ILTA TV and ILTA News. This is a special edition. We're sitting down with Conversant and we're talking our new security survey, which is just about to launch. My name is Beth Ann Stubbe and I'm the Director of Publications and Press for ILTA. I'm joined by two of my favorite members of Conversant, Mark Rasman and Leland Smith. Gentlemen, would you introduce yourselves?
Sure. Mark Rasman, I'm the president of Conversant, the co-founder of Phoenix 24, one of our companies, and I've been a happy member of ILTA in the legal community through several companies, all focused, of course, on security.
And I am Leland Smith. I've been with Conversant for approximately 3 years now, been in the legal industry. I've lost track, but I think around 10 or 11 years. And I am thrilled to be here. Love ILTA, love what we do.
Well, who counts years when we're having this much fun, right? All right, well, let's talk just kind of the bare bones. This is the second time we've sat down to do something together between Conversant and ILTA on the security front and the security survey. We did something pretty cool last year, but this year we're really ramping it up a bit. And the launch of this is coinciding with a change in the marketplace, really. Mark, we talked a little bit about why we wanted to do this and what's important and what's a little bit different about this survey. So let's start there. What's different here and why are we doing this now as a second follow-up?
Sure. So, it's what's different is COVID changed the world. It changed how we operate. It changed where we store data. So if you think about the classic security model, right, we'll use the London example of the crown jewels. They were in the castle, around the walls and moats and fortress. And now those crown jewels of our data, they're sitting in people's laptops in their bedrooms at home. So you have, on the one hand, a really changing landscape of where the crown jewels, all of the data that we have, and let's not forget, the data we in the legal industry have is typically the most sensitive data across a whole range of large companies. So you've got a change in where the data sits as a result of COVID. You also have a very significant change in the sophistication of threat actors. So where 3 years ago you would have had every threat actor, we're going to call them terrorists, they did their own thing. They've changed their model to what's called ransomware as a service. So now the most sophisticated from a software and a damage they can reap perspective are the core, and they sign up 60, 80, 100 affiliates to do the simple phishing. So when the attacks happen, and it's not an if, it is when they happen, the damage that they reap is so much more impactful. And unfortunately for us as the legal industry, right, they figured out that we have the most sensitive data. So where a medium-sized or a small law firm may not have been on the top 10 target list, legal is regularly now top 3 or 4 target list. And what we see, which is awful and disgusting, but we see it more and more, is they're going after law firms and then using the data and blackmailing the legal customers of that law firm, and sometimes even collecting double ransom. So we are now, as the legal industry, in the exact target strike zone for these threat actors because of the nature of the data. Like every other industry, our people are now everywhere, and the damage that's being done to law firms is immense. And sadly, you heard me, kind of introduce myself. We at Conversant, we founded Phoenix 24 to deal with what happens when the hackers are successful, and it's ugly. So as we look at benchmarking and creating more security, we know that we as an industry need to act in concert. We have a lot of leverage with our vendors, not as one company, but as an industry. So we're really excited about the shared vision with you, Beth, and Joy, and ILTA to say, we need to act like the gorilla or the elephant in the room, but we can only do that by acting together. So this first benchmarking survey allows us as an industry to understand each other, take stock of where we are, and then the next step will be to become that elephant and help set the agenda for our vendors that we're counting on. And we're seeing more and more as law firms have improved their security. Sometimes it's these vendors that are the path to the law firm data. Another part of what we talk about at Conversant and what we see sadly is, policies and compliance are important, right? And we're in the legal industry. It's, sometimes that importance can even be overstated because the hackers are not attacking our policies. They're attacking our technical controls and configuration. That's where the action is, and policy helps us know what to audit against. Policy informs our decisions, but what you're going to see that's really different in this tech survey is it's not policy oriented. It is about the technical controls and configurations, because that's where the attackers are focused, that's where they breach, and that's where we need to be. In addition to that, you're going to see, the question about, are you being attacked or probed? It's not even a question seriously we could ask. We all are. So the question is now about not just preventing the attack, it is the resiliency to say, if they get into one user's account, how do we limit the damage? How do we stop lateral movement? How do we stop their ability to go find backups? And how do we have so many backups that they can't find them all? So there's all kinds of complexity to change with the threat actors getting better, our recognition that, and their recognition that legal is a top industry, combined with the aggravation of COVID, which changed where we store our crown jewels, our most sensitive data.
I think it's really interesting that we always were taught that policy will keep us safe. It's not the case anymore. Leland, I think that goes exactly into the conversation you and I were having before this. What separates this survey from other surveys in the security space, and why is it so important?
Sure. For starters, we are steeped in legal here at Conversant. It's been our primary focus since the inception of the company, so about 14 years now. And this survey was built with legal in mind. There were many controls that are obviously cross-organizational, things that everyone should have in place, no matter who they are. But there are angles and avenues that concern legal more specifically. And going back to Mark's point, legal is a target, and historically a very soft target, and one that's piqued a lot of interest lately. So where we're building this survey, again, it's not around policy. It's also not around products. I don't particularly care whether your MFA is Okta, Duo, Microsoft Authenticator. I want to know how it's deployed, where it's deployed. Are you using it well? Are you using it correctly at your law firm? And then I think that because this is a benchmarking survey, the goal is to raise awareness about the controls that are out there and the controls that should be employed, as well as to understand as an industry kind of where we sit, right? Are we all on the lower end of that spectrum? Do we cover all the bases? Are the small firms catching up to the big firms in security? And using this, I hope that we can drive that awareness forward and continue that conversation, and that next year's benchmark will show an overall increase in quality. But on top of that, I think it's vital that we understand where we are and where we sit in that threat space.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting for us because we're going to be able to talk about this before we even publish the survey results. We're going to sit down obviously together and, ILTA and Conversant and go through some of the preliminary data, but then we're going to be able to have a conversation in a way we've never had before on site at ILTACon. You guys will be sitting down and talking to the audience and having a little bit of a conversation, not solely focused on product or policy, but on awareness and maybe adoption, what we can change and how we can change it together. Mark, I know you have a couple final thoughts here.
Absolutely. So, what we've seen over time, as we said, is the threat actors got really sophisticated. And when we look at things as we used to as well from a policy and a compliance framework, and we compare to NIST or we compare to other frameworks, which are important things to do, those frameworks don't evolve at the pace of the ransomware actors. And so some of what we've been through, the pain of helping companies and law firms respond after the ransomware actors have attacked, after the data has been exfiltrated. So we're seeing in real time with partners like Palo Alto and CrowdStrike, we're on that front line of the response. So the framework that we're benchmarking people against is what threat actor behavior is most common today. And that's going to change by the year. We see it change even by the quarter. So that's also an important differentiator here is we're taking the most recent attacks and saying, what would you need to stay safe? And that's going to be helpful for individual law firms, as Leland said, big, small, different practice areas, different regions. We're going to do that comparison. But to the point you were making, Beth Ann, we hope this starts the conversation together as an industry, because we need to have each other's backs. We need to leverage our collective understanding and negotiating power with our vendors, and we need to do it together.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm really asking all ILTAs to come together. Whatever demographic you fall into, big firm, small firm, huge firm, one lawyer, one solicitor across the world, come together today. Let's take the survey together and we'll benchmark, and then we'll go from there together as a legal technology industry. Thank you both for joining me today, and we'll start seeing some preliminary results soon.
Thanks, Beth Ann.
Our pleasure.